Our next presenter will be John Kern. You probably are all familiar with him. He's been here many times before. He's a graduate of the State University of Florida at Syracuse, or Forestry at Syracuse, in 1986. He's been doing this a while. He did 35 years with the Florida Forest Service as a ranger, urban forester, county fire supervisor, and 20 years as a regional supervisor for Central Florida. He started with the Fire Neural Network upon retiring 3 years ago to assist with fire behavior and operational aspects of wildland fire management. He is still active as a federal qualified fire behavior analyst, FBAN, and serves in that capacity on large Western fires several times a summer. He is married and has 3 grown children. And welcome, John Kern.
Thank you. Yeah, there you go. I guess I figured out that I have to retire in order to get able to come on up here. But that's great. So yeah, how did I end up here with Fire Neural Network? Is a startup company out of the University of Florida. Just got really lucky to get associated with these folks. Really young, energetic, super smart. I'll show you some of their qualifications there. One of them's got a Istvan Koreski. Has got a PhD in lightning science, so PhDs. His brother is a mechanical engineer. They've got astrophysicists literally on the staff and MBAs for the business side of things. And they discovered at University of Florida, they've got a neat lightning program there in their sciences where they will go out to areas where we've got thunderstorms going on. They will take those Estes rockets with a copper wire behind it, launch rockets up into thunderstorms, initiate lightning, and really study it there. You don't just have to sit back and wait for lightning and then hope you have the right sensors going. These folks make that lightning, measure that sensor, on their sensors and devices and things, and then figured out a way of actually determining much more of those properties of the lightning than we had been seeing before we would get from the Bureau of Land Management or Vasala positive and negative strikes on a map, and that'd kind of be it. And occasionally back when we had, what was that called? Now Coast, you would have that estimated rainfall that Rosie was talking about. There used to be some nice maps there in that Now Coast, but they don't supply anymore. But now we've got this ability here to look at what they call long continuous current, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But those are the lightning strikes that really do pose the most risk of starting wildfires. So started out, these guys had this new technology. They knew that they had a way to look at starting wildfires, but they didn't know a whole lot about fire operations or how to get it to the people that would benefit from that and how do we make that a benefit for the public. So I was lucky enough to kind of have them bump into me, and I think actually Ralph Crawford sent them my way when they called him first. He says, "Oh, you want to talk fire behavior? I got a guy who will talk and talk and talk." So they sent it my way, and I did. So they got this technology. They want to do some good with it in the world. So they're doing that. They understand that lightning is the #1 cause of the acres burn, not the #1 cause by numbers of fires, but by area. Lightning fires do cause the most acres burned. And in fact, by example, there in 2023 in Canada, 90% of the area burned was from lightning initiated fires. They realized, that you can't have people out there everywhere with aerial reconnaissance or fire towers back in the day. Yes, I am old enough. I used to supervise a fire tower lookout down in Fort Myers, bless her heart. And so that's kind of old school, but now we've got more ways of monitoring these fires out there with aerial reconnaissance and even satellite, but those can't be everywhere, and the satellites only pass over a few times a day. So we're throwing money at it with our different efforts there of recognizing lightning strikes. We put $625 billion in damages each year. So we do know we've got a problem out there, and a way to help solve it might be through Fire Neural Networks detection system there. We do know, we looked at the different studies of holdover fires, of when the lightning occurs and when it actually gets called in and when crews get to go onto it and start suppressing it. It's actually about 24 hours between the initiating lightning strike and when the call comes in and crews get to start going at it. And in the middle there, it talks about how wildfires do present, a global threat, if you will, of 1/5 of all the global CO2 production does come from wildfires. And there were a bunch of studies that were talking about the output, the amount of carbon that those put out really set us back for all the COVID benefits we had of factories shutting down and stuff. All that was lost in a summer. And so it does seem like it could be a vicious cycle of more wildfires create more greenhouse gases, which create more fires, which create more gases, and so on and so forth. So we want to do what we can to minimize those. We understand we're not going to put out every fire, and nor should we put out. That was one of the first lessons that I had with our scientists, founders here was, their first goal was put every fire out in 5 minutes. I'm like, no. Let's not do that. Let's analyze every fire. And some we're going to let go. Some we're going to let hit the edge of our citrus tract pre-suppression lines and not put dozer line in there and all that. So they understand that now. That we'll look at these, hand that information over to the folks that are responsible for fire control and let them make the decisions on prioritizing different fires. So that's what we're doing. And I point out the background picture there. Anybody recognize that image there is in New York City during the Canadian wildfires when the smoke would just swoop down, speaking of high split there. And so just those negative impacts aren't just at the fire's edge, but across the whole country at that point. So what it looks like, what we're bringing to you today, we just want to let you know about this product out there. It's we've received several important grants from the National Science Foundation. We're currently working on a phase 2 of the small business research and innovation grants. So it was kind of a proof of concept, and now we're really starting to apply it back out into the real world here. And we do have some customers that we're working with. But what it is over on the left side there is the high risk lightning detector, patented and developed there at the University of Florida. And it does a really good job of detecting high risk lightning. It'll actually detect all the lightning out there. I've compared our maps to the BLM and Valhalla maps, and there are very few strikes that either one is really missing. So we've got, a way of locating those strikes. And then what this does, and we'll talk about this later on, is really fine tunes that through artificial intelligence and stuff, and let you know, out of these 4,000 lightning strikes out there, why do we come away with 4 fires? What is it about those strikes or the ground or things like that? And we're looking at in the future on the right side here, the world's first fixed wing vertical takeoff and landing electric drone there that is pretty cool. And I got to say, like I said, I do feel very fortunate to be associated with these folks there that we're out checking out fires, we're checking out lighting, high tech, energized people trying to help, save the planet. Literally, they want to do that. And also drones. Oh, yeah. So, and new drones, and they're making new drones. And there's new testing areas that are actually netted areas at the University of Florida where you can fly your drones and not risk a fly off and things that I did not know was going on. So we got this new Firebird out there, vertical takeoff, and then it switches to wing mode and provides the lift from the wing so you don't have to burn up your batteries just keeping it up in the air. And it goes 100 miles an hour. It's got a loft of up to 3 hours if it's in that wing mode. When it switches to the vertical, so we'll go out to a fire autonomously, give it the lat long where that strike was. It will autonomously go to there at 100 miles an hour and then switch to that hover mode. It's got cameras, infrared and color that it can transmit right back to the dashboard that we'll talk about later and show you whether the fire did start. Is it moving? Is it not moving? Is it, in an area you need to worry about or an area you don't need to worry about? Give you that intel in real time, quicker than certainly we could in the past. There are sites, and we do make that information, we back track that information to the Florida Forest Service. So they give us the site to set it up at, to have this proof of concept, but we also provide the lightning data, obviously, to them. And I'll show you a little bit about that. All right. Good. Yeah. All right. So again, how it works, we've got those detectors out there on the left side. They're out, they're autonomous, picking it up. And then what I really do like, I want to talk a bit about is that the middle, kind of the flow chart of the information there, where we've got a strike occurs. That's the middle of the cloud there. And then we got the lightning detector. We've talked a little bit about that over there on the right side of that middle tree there. But then we got the environmental data, and that pushes down into the artificial intelligence. And that's really where they had me hooked when they were talking to me about, what we want to do in the future and how are we different? How are we going to, make things better? Like we pointed out from the very beginning, I'm really old. Got it. Check. We covered that. So I do remember back with Jim Brenner, and we would try to determine, when we would say, geez, we got to set our fire restrictions in the morning with the Florida Forest Service. And what do we look at? Gut feeling? Are the ditches full of water? Are they not? Should I require one piece of equipment or two? We wanted to get more scientific with it back in the day. So we would get out our charts and we would look at, oh, I don't know, relative humidity. Okay, as it gets drier, yes, you get more fires. So there's kind of an arrangement there. We would have the data on all the fires and when they occurred and what the RH was, and you'd get the scatter graph. And it would have an okay relationship, and scientists would look at chi-square to arrange, how well it lines up with that. And yeah, it's okay. And what about wind speed? Yeah, you get bigger fires on windier days, but sometimes it's really windy but wet, so you don't have fires on those days. And so we look at those, but we're looking at one at a time. We're looking at RH, we're looking at KBDI, we're looking at ERCs, we're looking at a chart and kind of, well, maybe it's two or three of these things. And that's about, I think it's where we are now with our fire danger indices are typically looking at RH and ERC, two things. And so they said, hey, Kern, can you get us some data on past fires? We want to put this into the artificial intelligence. And I said, yeah, I can get that. I mean, John Sadler can get me that. He and I went back and forth a few times, and he was really great at getting me. Literally, I think we got about 2,000 fires into the data. And they're like, Kern, can you get us the weather for those 2,000 fires over the past couple of years? I'm like, yep, can do. There's RAWs and FAWNs out there and ASOS's different weather stations. So we got that weather. I was like, I get you the weather. And so I was like, there's fire danger indices. There's ERC. They're like, what's that? And I was like, there's a BI burning index. What's that? There's spread component. Oh yeah, ignition component. What are those? So we went through. I was like, man, I can get you data. They're like, bring it on. So I went through Fire Family Plus and each of those FAWN stations out there and just sent them reams of files after files of the weather that was associated with all those lightning strikes, and put that into the artificial intelligence. And I was like, well, there's Canadian fire danger indices too. There's DUF codes and other things that they use that are very similar. They're just different size particles they look at. And like, more data? Yeah, bring it in. So I was spent like the first year just sending them data of the actual lightning strike, where it was that created a fire. So we got that fire report from the Florida Forest Service. And then we look at the RAWS stations or the FAWN stations that are around that and interpolate what it would have been, if it's in between these two stations, what was the weather there, and really crunch the numbers on that through the artificial intelligence. And I think that is kind of the thing. So instead of looking at humidity and ERC, two things, we are looking at about 30 is what they're using right now, vapor pressure deficits and RH overnight and mins and max of everything. So, and the precipitation that occurred out there. So that's the artificial intelligence part of this. And that's really what is kind of that new cutting edge here is not only the properties of that lightning, we're determining those long continuous current. We weren't able to do that before. And we're using artificial intelligence there at University of Florida to really crunch the numbers, find out what it is, crack that code out of these 2,000 lightning strikes. Why do we come away with 2 fires? So down there below that, we got that detection. Then we can either send that information over. Here in the future, we don't have all of our agreements with the aviation FAA to fly the drone beyond visual line of sight yet, but we're working on that. But we do push that information over to that dashboard you see over on the right side there, where we have our lightning strikes and then the associated fire to it. So we make that available through the TechnoSilva fire response dispatching that Florida Forest Service uses. So we send them that information there. But that is kind of the key of it all, is this special detection, looking at the properties of the lightning, not just plus or minuses, and then also putting in that artificial intelligence to figure out why, what makes one more dangerous than the other. The news article kind of showed there that these long continuous current strikes are in fact 1,000 times longer. Instead of flickering like most lightning does, these ones really hit and then just stay on, and you'll see them just kind of stay there 1,000 times longer. And you can picture, your finger through a candle. Yeah, really quickly, no problem. But if you have to go 1,000 times slower through that candle, there will be much more successful heat transfer to your finger. So we got that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is the lightning a positive and one a negative?
No, there can be long continuous negatives and positives, but it is more likely to be positive, but it is different than that. But you're right to try and suss those out. Yep. Very all right. So we got our detectors out there. They're doing a really good job of that. We looked at that. Kind of that middle picture is showing you the LNU complex in California from 2020. The Lake Napa unit lightning bust they had out there with I think 26 or so fires they came away with. So we looked at the lightning strikes that were most likely to have caused those 26 fires, and again analyzed the fuels and the properties of that lightning. And then we carried that over here to the right side. It's a little map just kind of showing where our current detectors are. We actually have 13 now instead of the 10 that we had before. We've kind of filled in there between Palm Coast and Gainesville with one at Willaca and Etnaya, and there's another one over the other side between Chiefland and Gothi now too. So we're filling in the gaps there. The more of these you have out there, the better your triangulation, just like we would do back in the old days with our fire towers. We got a strike here. If we can get that data from several of the sensors, it really helps us get a better location on it. And you can see the colors indicating that, like Will Kitchen said in the video there, we do have a lot of lightning, a lot of fires across there. So the point is to get that lightning information out to our firefighters with the Florida Forest Service and cooperators. We cover an area currently of 30,000 square kilometers. Yes, they're from Europe, so that's, I forget what it was. It's like 7 million acres in Kern terms there. And that 165 Florida lightning fires just this past year, we look at each one of those. I bugged some of you guys that I see in the audience here for shape files that they're actually capturing from their dozers. So I know that I got a strike here. Sometimes the lat long is at an intersection. I'm like, well, that's where the truck was parked, but the fire was actually out here. So I go and I bug the guys to get an actual shape file of the perimeter of the fire so we know how closely the accuracy is of our lightning detectors to the actual fire. So we're doing as much research as we can on it with the help of lots of good folks out in the field. And again, knowing the information, when we do analysis of tragic events or significant events, we often hear one of the common denominators of why things didn't go as well as they should is poor communication. Somebody had some information. These people need to know about it. And I can't help but think of an example recently where somebody said, yeah, I saw a guy on the roof at a speech and the local people knew about it, but it didn't get to everybody that needed to know about it, obviously, and could have been a terrible tragedy there. So, but we see that in lots of burnovers and other things like, oh yeah, this crew knew that the weather had changed. This crew did not get that word. So us knowing about these lightning strikes and the fire danger out there doesn't really get the job done. That's only part way there. So we need to make it available to the firefighters. One of the ways that we were doing that is to get this high risk lightning data. We, again, sit down with our customers. It's kind of neat. A lot of this is neat stuff that when we get these federal grants as a startup company there, they require you to take business classes. So I had to go to business classes as part of the team here and learn, about marketing and asking questions. We had to conduct 100 surveys with our customers of, where do you see the gaps in your job? How can we make things easier? What is it that you want that you don't have, sort of thing. So we did all that. And so we're interviewing some of our Florida forestry folks, and they're like, well, the pilots in the morning, they look at that thing that Will Kitchens was talking about there. Here's all the strikes. Here's 4,000 strikes from yesterday's thunderstorms. And that really isn't actionable. So what we send to the pilots now in that center part of the state is a KML file that can go into ForeFlight, which is an app that they now have on their iPads that they just recently got this past summer. And so they can get an email from the Fire Neural Networks, and it's got this layer, that center picture there of the color-coded lightning strikes, the most dangerous ones being in red there. And then over to the right side, we see an actual track of one of our pilots. I think it was out of the width of the Coochie area there, going down to the Beehive 2 fire at the Polk County line, north end of Polk County there. And they were aiming to go and check out those 2 strikes that the map said were out there, got there, found a fire, called in the crews, and were able to kind of take action on that in real time. So getting the information out to the people is important. We really do look for good customer service with our folks. We ask them, are you getting it? Is it not? I've got a lot of good folks that will tell me, Kern, we just had lightning go through. I'm not seeing it on the map yet. Check it out. So I make some calls literally to people in Hungary and in Brazil as well as one of our techs down there. So it's a worldwide world out there, obviously, nowadays. Another lessons learned sort of thing is the high risk lightning. We have 6 sensors in San Bernardino, California, Southern California there. And there was the line fire this past summer there that was 40,000 acres. But it got strong enough at one point, one of its big runs where it made a pyrocumulus cloud where the convective column is strong enough to act like, sea breezes coming together or forcing your air up into the atmosphere, just like a thunderstorm. And it did in fact make a thunderstorm, but the lifting mechanism was the fire itself. So they ended up having lightning strikes coming out of their convective column, much like you see on the top pictures there. Obviously, very dangerous situation for the firefighters around the edge of that fire. On the left side where you see the blue blue dots in the middle of it, that's where there was also some rain coming down. So those strikes are less risky. And the little circle over there to the right, maybe I can mess this up. Go over there, shows there's a slider bar on there where you can choose all the strikes or really get it down to like the top 10% of the most dangerous ones. So it's a dashboard that's you can adjust there to your needs. So that's what they did. They looked at that, found the most dangerous strikes around their fire, and were able to make sure folks were checking those out for new starts in areas where there were lots of people fighting fire already. But just kind of an interesting case study there, if you will. All right, let me see if I can get our little video here. So we're also with Fire Neural Networks. Well, we do these dashboards, lots of mapping, lots of GIS information there, and we're trying to find ways of improving things. And one of those is through CWPPs, which is Community Wildfire Protection Plans. And it is currently a very static document. Most counties have one because the federal government says you have to have a CWPP if you want to get some mitigation grant funding and things. So usually the mitigation specialist with the Florida Forest Service puts it together, and it is in a PDF form, and it goes onto a shelf, and it has to be updated every 5 years, and it is exactly how often it gets pulled off that shelf. But we're thinking that perhaps, oops, back up here. Yeah, we don't actually need the video if it doesn't. Oh, it does play. All right, so we've got a way that we're going to make it a GIS enabled product that CWPP can actually have live links, be housed on the web through some Esri products there. This is showing the San Bernardino or lightning detectors and about a 30-mile radius or 15 on a radius, so 30 miles apart, the sensors. Where they're out there, it's a hyperlinked kind of map nowadays that you can do that, you click on one of the buttons, it shows you where it is and what it is that you're looking at. And you could put, your fire stations on there, communities at risk, all sorts of hyperlinks. This is showing you kind of the lightning that they've had there. But we're just thinking that if you just were to animate, if you will, your CWPPs through current technologies, GIS and things that are out there, you can easily identify your urban interface areas. The community protection plans are supposed to be a cooperative product from the stakeholders, homeowners, communities, fire departments, land managers, all working together to develop this plan. So if we can have folks zoom in, look at their areas, see, am I in an area with higher danger? There are different layers you can put in here from ArcGIS Online of fuel layers, numbers of fires, housing densities, just all sorts of opportunities to put more information in the hands of the public out there that would help identify areas. And here they're finally kind of zooming in on areas, looking at the topography there and saying, that perhaps we have a recommended treatment of some goat fuel management out there on these hills, the areas below where the homes are. So just something that Fire Neural Networks is always also looking at. They've done a couple of these in Florida, and we're looking to see if that is something that folks are interested in. So kind of operationally, where is Fire Neural Networks? We're certainly here in Florida. We've got 25 operational detectors, 13 with the Florida Forest Service, and then Florida Power and Light has joined us and has sponsored some detectors down in Palm Beach County. They have found that these long continuous currents are also dangerous to their substations. So they want to know if there's been a strike near their substations. And even if it doesn't cause a full failure, it can damage some of the equipment that might break in the next few days. So they want to get out there wherever there's been a lightning strike near their products to keep the lights on. It's also interesting to point out with the FP&L that they're helping us get that beyond visual line of sight agreements so that we can fly our Firebird autonomously out and back, because they're already doing that. We were out at a substation in Palm Beach County, and all of a sudden there's a kind of a clamshell device there near the transformers, and it opens up and a tray pops up and a drone is on it. you hear it spool up and it just takes up and goes off and nobody's flying it, nobody's on scene, nobody's keeping an eye on it, but it is transmitting back to their headquarters and they've got the permits for that. And then it goes and it flies down different of their transmission lines, looking for changes in trees, it does change detection basically. And it also looks at the temperatures of some of their transformers and stuff. So they've got ins with the FAA and they are helping us to get the, I think it's CODAs, whatever you call it, agreements out there to get our drone up and running. So it's a great partnership there. But we've also got 10 out in Montana that just went in this past month or so. Actually, we've got a call in Idaho next week, and we've got, let's see, 18 out in California. There's a bunch around Tahoe, 6 around Tahoe, 6 or more down in San Bernardino. They're also in Brazil. They've been there quite a while, and over in Australia as well, working there. I put this slide in here. Currently, we're part of the X Prize for Wildfire, where, bless their hearts, the challenge is to detect and autonomously extinguish a wildfire started in a 1,000 square kilometer area, which is like 380 acres, in less than 10 minutes. So they got to detect it and put it out without anybody doing it other than autonomously. Fire Neural Network is part of a bigger team since it's out of the University of Florida. It's called Gator X, but they're working there. That middle picture there is a company called Swiss Drones. You should Google them. They've got a tethered payload that has an aimable fire extinguisher, if you will, on it. It can carry about 10 gallons of water or retardant on it. And with cameras, see where it's aiming at. And the idea is that we would be able to detect these fires for using various satellites, cameras, our system, and some other systems there, and then be able to launch this Swiss drone out there and hopefully put it out there. It's like X Prizes, it's reaching for the stars, but we'll see. But it has created lots of good partnerships with us and these other companies and folks. And that is going to be occurring. The actual competition, we started out with 100 different teams that are down to 28 that we're lucky to be part of. And we'll be doing that next fall, will be the actual test. But next spring, the reason I put this in here is that we need a place in Florida, and we may use University of Florida forest areas there. But if you're interested in hosting a test fire to where we can see if the safe drone goes out and actually does all that we think it can do out there, let us know, contact us on our webpage and say, yeah, come on out to our forest or property there, and we'll light a small test fire and see if we can fly right to it and put it out for you. Otherwise, we'll have Rocker and Company come put it out for us. So the team there will wrap it up here. Like I say, it is literally made up of astrophysicists with PhDs, Nobel Prize winning folks. Caroline there is our MBA with a co-founder. Istvan has got his PhD in lightning physics. His brother, Tomasz, is the mechanical engineer putting it all together and making things happen. You can see that we're working with Craig Fugate, who was the director of emergency management for the state of Florida, and then was in charge of FEMA for quite a while. He's back in Florida and is an advocate for us and has been at a couple of our meetings and, helped us kind of visualize where we should go as a company and other folks that we've been working with. So we're kind of proud of all those folks. So I want to thank you all for giving us the time here. And I just kind of point out all the other folks that we're really thankful for, Sadler and Mussel and the guys in Lakeland have sent me lots of data that I put into this and trying to make it all work. We're going to have a booth set up here after lunch when some folks can get in. They had another meeting. It's fun. Is down with talking drones with FPNL this morning. Otherwise, he would be here. So that's the little talk we've got. We're hoping to move forward with this. I just thought we'd let you know that it's out there. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks. We've got, I think, 5 minutes for questions. So, of course, John's going to be here. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll ask 2 questions. First, are you going to extend the network into North Florida? Second, don't want to derail you, but the drone platform that seems like that'd be real useful for ignitions also. Has that been looked at?
Right. So, first question first. Yeah, we would be happy to move into the Panhandle and have approached folks. We have our grants that have allowed us to manufacture and put out there. And like I say, Florida Forest Service is nice enough to let us host that. But we don't have unlimited funds to go putting these sensors there. We would need a sponsor, a contract, a something or other, client, if you will, in the future to put them there, but we'd love to. Yeah, they're the ones, sitting there. I can't believe they've got a bright yellow, the KPDI up there was news to me, man. I came across here and saw nothing but full beaches. So we would love to move into other areas. Like I say, we are looking at FPNL. They're moving down there. Flagler County's thinking of maybe adding to it. But yeah, we are trying to grow. And then with the drone platform, we're focused on getting to a site quickly, using our payload to be cameras and such. But there are other ignition devices out there. Typically, you would want to be, I think, closer to where your drone is operating if you're doing prescribed burning with it, not necessarily like this is designed to take off from Gainesville, fly out over the Ocala National Forest, check it out for you, 30 miles away from where your operator is. So I'm always a fan of hoppers and droppers and dropping drag eggs and things, but maybe not with this particular hardware. Thanks. Yeah, go ahead.
You spoke with client, so right now there still isn't I guess a formula yet for cost and annual fees.
If you want to read my, so I wasn't scheduled to be the talker here, speaker today, and man, I love staying in my box as a retired person saying, hey, that's what the guys in the C-suite, as they call it, the chief operating officer and so on and so forth. I mean, it's their company. They're making those decisions about business models and stuff. I'm fire behavior, and I'll connect you up with somebody over at NIFC in Boise. I know a few folks there. So, they are exploring different avenues. And so my point was to say that I've been writing them emails this week going, what if I get asked, what does that cost? What if I have got my piece of property, Disney Preserve that I would like to cover? I don't have the 7 million acres I need to cover, so it really does seem like our market is the larger statewide agencies, but certainly plugging in single-use folks or somebody that just wants the data out of it onto their dashboard, that sort of thing. So those are different markets. And I would direct you to kind of our, take that question to our website there where you send an email and then the actual business folks and scientists and other ones would be able to answer. But we're working towards that. Yeah.
I would think paper companies would be interested in.
Right. Oh, exactly. Yeah. And maybe, yeah. And actually one would, perhaps it's a selfish thing. I'm thinking ski areas around Denver myself. And if they need somebody to go check it out all winter long, I'm your guy, because they are actually, they're real estate businesses now, and they're all about mountain bikes all summer long. They got people on the hill all year round, and they do not love a wildfire ripping up between the runs.
You're a selfless guy.
I will take that one. And
I think one more for you.
So what percentage of lightning strikes are you guys finding are these dangerous? Is it like 1 in 10 or?
It's about 5% are that long continuous current. Yeah. Great question. Yeah. And I'm kind of a detail guy and a spreadsheet guy. And they were saying we have 100% accuracy of finding the lightning strikes. I was like, well, there were 3 or 4 fires that we did not find a strike for. I'm not saying that maybe it wasn't a lightning fire to begin with, but we may be missing 1 or 2 of those. But yeah, overall, long continuous current's about 5% of the strikes.
Is it really? Are you coming from your background? Are you finding that it is like a worthwhile reduction in how many lightning strikes would be checked?
So my bosses are not here yet. We are getting there with that artificial intelligence. The more data we need, I think we're still at a point where there's just so much lightning out there. You got those 5,000 strikes. We're taking it down to like Kern. Yeah, when we filter it down to just that 10% of the most dangerous strikes, we are finding about 90% of the fires. I'm like, well, that's good. But you just sent them a map. You went from 5,000 strikes to 50 or something. You're still sending, and it's going to come away with like 5 fires. So you're still sending them, an extra 45 strikes that weren't fires. So, I want it to be just like that, but we're getting there. And I think the more data we get, the better. And we're getting there. And it's a good tool right now for directing those pilots to the high risk areas, to letting people know on the fire line during these pyrocumulus events and things like that, that things are happening. And we do use it as a lightning detection for folks that are out marking timber. You know, it's real time lightning data that you're using for these other things as well. But we're getting there.
All right, folks, thank you, John, very much for the 15-minute break.